There are a lot of ways to mess up the breath in freestyle, and they're all bad. In particular, lifting to breathe is going to cause swimmers problems, and if they can't fix that skill, they're always going to struggle to create speed. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. One of the most challenging skills in freestyle, and challenging skills in swimming for that matter, is breathing effectively. If swimmers don't breathe well, it's going to have a negative impact on just about every aspect of their stroke. As such, it's one of the most important skills to get right, and it's a skill that often needs to be addressed first. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad ways to breathe, and in this video, I'm going to show you a simple solution to tackle one of the most problematic, which is lifting through the breath. Let's take a look at what it is, why it's a problem, and how to fix it. Whenever swimmers breathe poorly, they are having a negative impact on their speed. Specific to lifting the head to breathe, when swimmers lift their head, the hips are going to go down. If the hips go down, that means more drag, that means less speed. If swimmers lift the head to breathe, that's also going to pull the shoulders offline. Again, more drag, less speed. And if the shoulders are getting pulled out of position, they're getting pulled offline, that's going to make it more difficult for swimmers to use their arms in order to create propulsion, less speed. And of course, if swimmers are lifting their head to breathe, that means it's going to take more time to breathe. That means a slower stroke rate. The less often swimmers are taking strokes, well, that means less propulsion as well. So lifting the head to breathe is definitely a skill that we need to address. And it's a skill that needs to be addressed early because it's very difficult to maintain effective body position if the head's out of position, and it's very difficult to create a lot of propulsion if the shoulders are out of position. Now, just because we understand the problem doesn't mean it's easy to create change. In many cases, swimmers don't realize what they're doing. They have no idea that they're lifting the head. They just think it feels normal. They're just doing whatever they think they need to do to breathe, and they don't realize that their skills are hurting their speed. They also don't understand, they can't feel, they're not aware of the fact that there are other ways to breathe other than the strategy they're using. And so when you ask them to do something differently, they basically just do the same thing with a very, very slight change. And that's because they're trying to perform a better version of the same skills rather than changing the skills that they're trying to perform. So in order to create change, we have to show swimmers that there's another option. Now, before we discuss what to do about it, let's take a look at excellence. So if we watch here, the swimmer is going to breathe to his right there, and it's going to be very fast. It's going to be very clean. And as you can see, his head isn't lifting at all. It's just a rotation. He's just turning. He's not picking his head up to breathe. And so as a result, he's not going to let his hips drop. His shoulders aren't coming out of line, and he's not going to slow down his rate. And so while this example is an extreme, and you'll probably won't see anyone that does it better than this, it's important to know what it looks like, what's possible, so that we can figure out how to help swimmers get closer. And the closer they get, the more likely it is they're going to breathe effectively. One of my favorite strategies to help swimmers learn this skill is called stroke and roll. And so there's an exaggerated roll to breathe, and by exaggerating the roll, we can eliminate the need to lift. And what's effective about this drill is that it lets swimmers feel that there's another way to get air rather than just lifting. It's also very effective because it's very difficult to do poorly, and it can be done with just about any level of swimmer. And so regardless of who it is, who you're working with, you can use this strategy to help them feel what it's like to not lift to breathe. And once they can feel that, now we have a chance to execute that skill when they're actually swimming. Now again, the purpose here is to help them feel what it's like to get over to breathe without having to lift up at all. And the purpose is to show them what's possible, to give them a new set of experiences, a new set of sensations that they can associate with effective breathing. The goal is not to teach them how to rotate more. As we saw in the previous swimmer, he wasn't necessarily rotating that much. However, he had figured out how to breathe without lifting. So we're using rotation to show swimmers that they don't have to lift. The goal is not necessarily to encourage them to rotate more, although if that works, it could be an effective strategy for them. So again, the goal of the drill is to show them, to let them feel what it's like to get air without having to lift up. And once they can feel that, then they can start to figure out how to make it happen when they're actually swimming. So the key thing to watch for here is how little lift there is through the breath. We watch here, it's going to be right onto the back and there's no lift up. And so that's the key point. It's not to exaggerate the rotation. We're using the rotation as a tool to help feel how to breathe without lifting. And then once swimmers can feel how they can get air without having to lift the body up, now can they figure out how to make that happen, how to keep the same head position, how to keep the same body position while they're actually swimming. So how do we make this work as effectively as possible? The challenge here is that the drill is relatively simple. It shouldn't be very hard to get them to do the drill and get them to roll on their back, get them to breathe without lifting. That part is relatively simple. Getting it to transfer, getting them to go from the drill to swimming is more difficult. And so to make that happen, it's really effective to build the drill into actual sets. So the idea is that they do the drill for awareness, help them feel it, help them understand how to stay low through the breath, and then ask them to swim for performance and ask them to maintain, get as close to those sensations that they felt when they were doing the drill. And then you simply do it over and over and over again. So we're using the drill to help them feel what it's like to breathe effectively, and then they have to make it happen when they're actually swimming and they don't have access to that same amount of rotation. But they do have enough access to rotation, they just have to figure out how to use it to breathe low rather than lifting to breathe. Because learning is context specific, we want to use this strategy at different speeds. So you're doing it during speed or sprint work, using it during endurance work, and using it during race work. Not only do they have to do it at various speeds, they have to be able to do it at various levels of fatigue and with various types of fatigue. So by using this strategy in different training contexts, we can make that happen. So we've got two sets here. The first is more of an endurance set. The second is a little bit more of a race set. So in the first set, they're going to go 4 times, 25 stroke and roll, breathe every 3. They're going to build each stroke into the breath, and then they're going to go 125 to 75, breathe every 3, and then a 50 choice breathing where they're going to descend those 1 to 4. So they feel the skill during those 25s, and then they try to execute it during the 125s. Next piece of it, they're going to go 4 times through again. Again, start with stroke and roll, breathe every 3, build into the breath. So each stroke, they're going to go faster, and then they're going to be fast with the breath. 75 freestyle, descend 1 to 4 to stronger as compared to the 125. They'll repeat that whole process 2 times, try to be better the second round. So they're doing the drill, try to make it happen, and they're just going to repeat that process over and over and over again. For the race set, they're going to go 3 rounds through. They're going to start off with a 25 stroke and roll, breathe every 3, help them feel it. Then they're going to go a 50 at 200 race effort. The odds, they're going to breathe to the opposite side. So if they prefer to breathe to the right, they're going to breathe to the left. If they prefer to breathe to the left, they're going to breathe to the right. And on the evens, they'll breathe normally. So again, using the stroke and roll, help them feel it, and then they're going to try to execute that same low level breath. Then they're going to go a tuner freestyle where they're going to go 25 stroke and roll and plus a 25 fast. So the challenge here is that they're going to be continuously moving. Those 25s fast need to be fast, and they're going to try to execute their breath when they're doing that. And then in between, they've got the drill, and they've got to execute the drill effectively, even though they're going to be tired, they're going to be out of breath due to that 25 fast. Give them a little break, 75 race, execute with great breathing, and then we'll repeat that for 3 total rounds. So by helping them feel a new way to breathe, feel how to breathe without lifting, and then giving them the chance to make that happen and repeating that process over and over again, we give them the best chance to improve a skill that ultimately will help them go faster. If you want to learn more about how to improve breathing in freestyle, check out the video below.